Good evening, Uganda, and welcome to this special edition of On the Spot. My name is Patrick Kamara. We are coming to you live from the auditorium of Wizards Media here in Ntinda. We are gathered to get the findings of a research that was conducted in July this year, conducted by Research World International, with a name of trying to assess the opinions and attitudes of voting age Ugandans 10 months to the 2016 general elections. I have the panelists here, and the researcher himself, and also an audience which is comprised of eminent Ugandans, should say. We have journalists, we have lawyers, we have teachers, we have and other cross-section of Ugandans. But let me first introduce the panelists this evening. I have, from my immediate left, the Deputy Secretary General of the NRM Party, Honorable Richard Todwong.
Good evening, viewers.
I also have, after him, I have the Associate Director of the Great Lakes Institute for Strategic Studies, Mr. Godbert Mushabe.
Good evening, viewers.
I also have Mr. Moses Kisa, who is a PhD candidate from Northwestern University in the United States.
Good evening, viewers.
And I have the researcher himself, Dr. Patrick Wakida from Research World International.
Good evening, viewers.
And my audience is comprised of journalists, like I said before, teachers, lawyers, and members of the civil society organizations. So now, without wasting time, let me call upon you, Dr. Patrick Wakida, to give us the findings of your research.
Thank you, Patrick. Secretary General, the panel of experts, and everybody who has managed to come here today. What we normally do, 7 or 8 months to elections, that we try to provide a baseline information for the politicians, for the technical people, and all those people who want to use research to grow their parties. And that's exactly what we did. This is a baseline information. Our intention is that by the time of elections, we will have done at least 3 or 4 polls. And the last poll will be coming 2 weeks to elections. We are also very happy to report that this baseline information provides us with information. It provides us with data on voters, and therefore we can track the respondents from this poll. We have the telephone numbers, we have some emails, and we can therefore call the same respondents if we choose to see whether they are moving or they are not moving. The purpose of this poll 2015 was basically to provide the public with directions in discussion. We wanted to measure public attitudes, opinions, and behaviors on politics, governance, and also civic issues, so as for us to be able to inform the public on how to discuss as we head towards the elections, but also to identify issues that are likely to shape the elections and choices. And that was basically the study. The way we conducted it provides for you to understand everything that you would want to understand. It's a national public opinion poll. It's not a radio call. It's not an urban poll. Every Ugandan was given an opportunity to be interviewed. The approach we used here was basically quantitative. Quantitative means it's hard data. It's not a qualitative response. The technique we used was a face-to-face. Now, unlike other research firms and other researchers, we used a technology that allows me to receive data direct from the field. We have a platform called the ODK, the Open Data Kit, for which an interviewer is able to interview and send the data direct to us. The advantage with that technology is that I am able to tell whether the interviewer is in the field. I am able to receive the results within the shortest time possible, and errors are minimized. I'm able to see the GPS. As you send your results, the GPS coordinates are captured. So I'm able to know that the respondent did actually not sit in Kampala and give us results that he went to Mbale. We are able to tell that. The target respondents, unlike other polls, we started with 17 years old. The reason why we did that is that we understand that registration started at 16, and that those who are 17 are likely to be voters by the time of voting. The gender were both female and male. The sample size is 2,320 Ugandans, and fieldwork was done in 48 districts, 72 sub-counties, and 120 parishes. The results you're about to receive is given with a margin of error of +3, -3, but with a confidence level of about 97%. The errors that constitute that we are talking about is whether people are able to freely give us response. That's one element that we put under consideration, and then other considerations. Sampling was random. We did not predetermine who we were going to interview. It was just random. And the analysis, as you'll be seeing, we have rural, urban, we have the regions, we have the gender, we have the specific age groups, and you will also, if you want, I'll be able to tell you that the person who said we'll do this was a Protestant, or was a Catholic, or was a Munyankole, or was a Mugwere from Chibuku. So I am able to provide you that information. It's all available. The sponsors of this this program were basically NTV, Uganda Government Monitoring Platform, the Great Lakes Institute for Strategic Studies, Greece. They partnered with us to conduct this poll. I have the data map, and like I said, that's the data map. You are able to see what you expect in this poll. You have tribe and religious affiliations, region comparison, rural, urban, gender, age, education level, employment status, and political affiliation. You are therefore able to see that the person who are saying this are either NRM or they are FDCs. It's not it's not a cocktail. It is defined, and therefore the insights you'll be receiving is you have governance, national ID registration. Somebody asked me why national ID registration. All of those things that you see there have a bearing on an election. National ID registration is the basis for election for you to vote. Election reforms have got influence on whether you vote or not. 2016 candidate choice, performance of YK, intra-party competition, handover of power in Uganda, presidential term limits, united opposition, digital migration and media. All of those are in this survey that we're about to share with you. The sample size and share by region, number of interviews in urban. You will realize that the total population of urban comprises majorly of Kampala. Kampala has got over 40% of the urban population. Then eastern, then what's that? That is central, and other regions, as you can see. The interviews in the rural areas, you can see 28% came from central, 30% from the center. You have Kampala with a small percentage in that. In the rural, actually didn't have anything, because Kampala was regarded as 100% urban. And then you have eastern yellow, which is 25%, 17% in the north, and western having 30% of the population. Now let me repeat, this is proportionately distributed. We distributed it according to the population of Uganda. And I would 100% tell you that each region received a share for which they should have had to have. Anyway, Interview by region, you are able to see again, as you can see on the graph. Can you go ahead? Adam. The population surveyed. Again here, the question is, you can see that 78% of the population surveyed were from the rural area. Only 22% represents urban. The majority of the population surveyed, as you can see, have only completed primary education at 44%. You have 30% completing secondary education. The female at 53 and the male at 47. I think that helps you to understand that is the demographic distribution of Uganda's population. What is very clear, can you go back? What's very clear is that we still have a population that has no education at 13. You have education that has people who have only completed primary at 44. When you add 13 plus 44, you are able to get the total. That's about 57%. And that is very dangerous. The reason why we do this is that we want you to understand the voters. Who are the voters? And that graph should be able to give you an understanding of the Ugandan voters. By age group, by education, by region, you are able therefore to understand. Average number of voters per household. We asked this question, how many people aged 17 years and above live in your household? And you can see the majority of households have got between 1 and 3 people who are 17 years old. You are able to see that. And the biggest population with the highest number of voters, 1 to 3, is Kampala, followed by Central, Western, and then you can see Eastern. This is very important for you to understand if you are targeting households, how many voters you will be targeting. Go. Ethnicity of the voters. Again, this is very critical, because if, as a politician, you can choose and say, I will go for these ethnic groups. The biggest number of people in this sample, which was random, is 18%. Baganda. Banyankole 9%, the Ites at 9%, Bagiso at 7%, and the Bachiga somewhere here at 4%. And you are able therefore to see that. And this helps you to check the data, whether it was actually randomly selected. I'm sure if you went in the UDHS and you're checking, you should be able to get these numbers. It's either +2, +3, or -3, but within the same range. If it's going to be 4, it could be 6, it could be 7, it could be, within that range. We also wanted to understand the religious affiliation of voters. Who are they? And then you are able therefore to see that the majority of voters, registered voters, are Catholics at 44%, Protestant at 32%, Muslim at 14%, and born again at 9%. Again, that is very important for the politicians. That is the picture outside there. Can you go? Voter education and employment level. This is very important. How many of the voters have no education? 13%. How many of the voters have only done primary education? You are able to see there 44%. And secondary education, only 30%. Those who have finished a degree or diploma, only 13%. And then you are able therefore to look at, are they working? Are the people I'm dealing with, are they working or they are not working? That's very critical for anybody who is going to draw a strategy for any politician. Can you go down? Financial status. It's important to know this particular person who you call the voter. Look at this. How many of Ugandans can admit to say I'm well off? Only 1%. Somewhat well off, 5%. average 23%, but not very well off are 32%, and basically poor at 35%. People are able to admit that they are not well off or they are well off. This is very important for anybody who is drawing a strategy. Go down. Combined monthly income, less than 100,000, 35%. 100,000, 300,000, 26%. But as income goes up, you begin to see the number dwindling. You can comfortably say that only 1% of Ugandans can say they earn between 3 million and 9 million shillings. That is $2,500. Only 1% of Ugandans. Voter registration. This was important in order for us to establish, therefore, whether actually people registered for national ID. In case you choose to use the national ID to determine who votes. And then you see 98% of Ugandans 17 years and above had a chance to register for a national ID. How many of those have collected? 50% have collected the national ID. But I want you to pay attention to the region. Whereas Northern Uganda has received national ID, the Eastern and Western have barely received the national ID. So ID issuance has only happened in Northern Uganda, and it has also happened partly in Central and Kampala. Accuracy. These guys, 97% said the information we gave is the exact information that is on our ID. 97% say the information is accurate. Knowledge of polling station. Very important. Do you know where you vote from? And again, you have 92% of Ugandans know their polling station. But the other 8%, especially the young people, 17-24 who are voting for the first time, are still staggering whether they know where they will be voting from. The governance. Most serious problems facing Uganda. Like I said, we want to make this election an issue-based election. So we wanted to understand what are those problems facing Uganda, so that those who are drawing manifestos can be able to see. And you can see poverty still tops the problems Ugandans face. Corruption, embezzlement of government funds, unemployment rates, poor road networks, poor education system, and lack of medicine health facilities. Those are very critical things that people talk about as their problems. Public perception of corruption. Do you think Uganda government has done enough to fight this vice? Again, you see Ugandans are divided. 64 don't think so. But again, that's their opinion. 64 don't think the government has done enough. Voter bribery. We wanted to find the instances, and the basis for this was only 2001. We wanted to establish, are the people receiving money? 9% of the households that we went to received something, either salt, sugar, money, or something. But again, this is very critical. And somebody would say 9% is very small. But if the average number of households, voters in a household is 3, mathematically you'll be having 27% of people that are of voters who have received a bribe. True. So you are talking about a big number of people. Because I would not want to come and give each individual. I would only give the head of the household and say, please sort your family. And the average number of voters in a household that we have already established there is 3. So you multiply 9 by 3, and you're able to get the percentage of people who actually access this kind of bribe. Did you vote for that candidate? When you receive the money, do you actually go ahead and vote for that person? And again, 59% say, yes, I will be going to give that person who has given me something. That is very critical. Can we? the road to 2016 elections. And I think this is important. I have always told everybody in the market, don't attempt to sell your product if nobody knows about your product. The more people know about you and your brand, the more likely it is that they will talk about it, and the more likely it is that they will buy it. And we wanted to measure name recognition of the different people, especially those who are positioning themselves for the position of presidency in this country. Again, you can see that Mr. Museveni is 100% across. 96% for Kizza Besigye, and 83% for Premier Amama Mbabazi, and Olaro Otuna at 79%. And you can see that this has got a direct relationship on how people identify themselves with a candidate. It is very rare that you talk about a candidate for whom you have never heard about. Will you vote in the upcoming 2016 presidential election? This is projective. Projective, people want to vote. And I think that is it in the public mind. We should not stop there and think that people want to vote, because there are factors along the way that stop these people from voting. But actually Ugandans want to go and vote. Why I want to vote? The voting process is not credible. And aware of the polling station, ignore why I want to vote. Not interested in the politics, tired of the same candidates, have not received my national ID yet. Those are the reasons why I want vote. And they come out very, very clearly. You can see the major thing that comes out at 57% is that the process is not credible. And that is the driving force for those who need to be to come out and vote or not to vote. What could motivate me to vote? Again, we wanted to know. You say these are things. So what can be done when there is a change in leadership? Someone who can fight corruption, independent electoral commission, improves road network. These are things that we did not list. We just asked people, please tell us. You say you're not preparing to vote, but what is it that will, and people just throw out those things. You can pick out what you actually want to use from that. First-time voters. 32% of Ugandans within the register today are first-time voters. Majority of them, 17 to 34 years. They are first-time voters. They have never voted before. Go back. I think if you read a mathematical calculation, assuming the Electoral Commission has about 16 million people, you're talking about 3.4 million new voters coming in the market. They have never had a candidate before. Candidate selection criteria, we wanted to know, what will it be? Is it no change? Is it continuity? What is it? And you can see no change, 35%. An honest candidate, a candidate with fresh ideas, a very courageous candidate, I want change, a candidate with experience, a candidate who represents Uganda as well on the international, a younger candidate. All of those are elements that people will be looking through in their minds. And if I was writing a manifesto, or if I was on the podium, I would know what to say using this. Supposing I'll be saying change, and the population is not saying that it's not going to be one of them, then you'll be miscommunicating. Drivers of candidate choice. Drivers of candidate choice. Which one issue, remember, which one issue in Uganda today will be the most important when you decide who to vote? And again, you see, fighting corruption, unemployment, creation of jobs, improvement in the healthcare sector, improvement on the economic growth, providing quality education for citizens. Those are things that come out. If you took the top 5, you are able therefore to see what people are yearning to have from their own leaders. Go down. Aided. This is aided. My choice for president. Aided means is there any one person you could think of in Uganda that you could support for president during the 20th presidential election? This is actually unaided, not aided. Yeah? This is unaided. Think about a person and tell me that person you want to support for president. Think about one. And people therefore throw the names. And when we go and tally the names, then we see how many have said they will vote for Kizza Besigye. But look at this. At 51, at 15, at 11. And then the rest of these guys, 1, 1, 1, 1. But there is this group here, undecided 8%. Those who said, please don't ask me that question now, 6%. And those who said, I don't know, 1%. 1% in statistics is not very small. In statistics, 1% is not very small. So somebody would not say, oh, this guy's only scored 1%. It's not very small. This question, we listed the names of the candidate. We now tell you, there are these candidates. Can you please tell me which candidate you would vote for? So the names of the candidates here are given. And you have Mr. Museveni from 51, when the names are thrown to them, he's able to rise by about 4 points. Because of the name recognition, they are able to say, this is the person I was thinking about, I would want to vote. And then Kizza Besigye also rises by 1 point. Was that at what percentage? 2 points, yes. And yeah? Yes. And Mbabazi goes up by 1 point. Also 2? From 11? Yeah, 2 points. Those, it's easier for somebody to say, oh, that's the person I was thinking about. When people are struggling to think about the person, when you put the names, when you show them the show card, people are able to immediately identify the person. And at that point, Mr. Museveni went up, Mr. Mbabazi went up by 2 points, Mr. Museveni went up by 4 points, and Kizza Besigye went up by 2 points, something like that. My choice, Museveni, Mbabazi, and Besigye. We wanted scenarios. We were drawing now scenarios. If we put these guys, 3 of them in the race, how will it look? Again, you're able to see that 55% still stick with Mr. Museveni. Mbabazi at 14, Besigye at 18%, and then but you have 5, 4, and 4, which is 9 points up there, with guys saying none of them, I don't know, no comment. Those are areas for hunting, if I was a politician. Go down. My choice for president overall rating. We do this in order for us to get the average of all the questions, the 3 questions we've asked. We add it together and divide it with the number of questions we have asked. And the questions were 3. So when you add all the areas that we've asked and you get an average, you get an average mark about 54%. Go. Intra-party competition. Party membership. Are you a member of a political party? Again, here you say that 33% of Ugandans do not belong to any party. Well, 61% belong to a political party. Which political party? 82% of people who belong to political party belong to NRM. And 13% belong to FDC. Go. Time for a new leader in NRM. Asked only to NRM members, in your opinion, is it time for National Resistance Movement to have a new leader? This question was only asked to NRMs. Only those who said they are NRM. You remember we asked which party do you belong to? So we followed them up and we went and asked them. And 38% of the NRM members think it is time for a new leader, while about 60% still say we don't want to hear about that. This question was asked before the events within NRM. We wanted to understand, are the people thinking about any other person? Are they thinking about Tadwong? Are they thinking about who? Within the NRM. And so we said, assuming Mr. Museveni is not there, can you tell us which leader are you thinking about? And then you can see Amama Mbabazi at this point has a high score, and surprisingly, in the 2012, Amama Mbabazi was the fourth person with a 4%. In the 2014, was in the second position with about 13%. Now, he has a rating of 39% of people within NRM who would say, yes, we can support him. So he has 39% of the 38. Let us get this clear. 39% of the 38 who said,
yeah,
we need a change within the NRM.
Yep.
Yeah. Support from Mbabazi as an independent, we were asking. Supposing Mbabazi chooses to go independent, again, we followed them. We followed those within NRM. How many of them would go with him? But remember, 38, 34, meaning that about 4% of those who want change would still not vote him. Would still not vote him. He would get 34%, but out of 38% who want change, 4% would still not vote him if he stood as independent. Parliamentary elections, preferred candidates by party. 60% say for us we'll go by NRM, 17% will go for FDC, 3% independent, any potential candidate. And actually this you can see that people are still struggling with choices, with decisions. And only decisions will be made once the space is opened. Are you likely to vote for your current MP? I'm not sure. And you can see 51% say, yeah, we'll vote that person. But a whooping 29 and 14% are still there. They are not sure. So you expect half the parliament to come back and half the parliament to not to come back. If we go by this, this could change. This only represents the period of 11th and 26th of July. United opposition, one candidate. In your opinion, should opposition unite and field one candidate? Again, here you see the views of the population is divided. 39, 38. 38 saying no. 39 saying yes, I think it's okay, let them unite. The question is, when they unite, will they be voted?
Okay, we need to take a break here, Dr. Wakida, and then we'll continue with the findings of this research. Let me hand off back to Serena, so we'll come back after the break. Of On the Spot, we're coming to you live from the Wizards Media Auditorium in Ntinda. We're getting the research findings on the opinion poll that was conducted by Research World International. I'll hand you over again to Dr. Patrick Wakida to continue with his presentation.
Thank you, Patrick. 2016 free and fair election. Do you believe that the elections will be free and fair? And again, here you see a divided opinions. 32 do not believe so, while 23% are not sure. 23 plus 32 is a big number. They don't believe the elections will be free and fair.
It's 55%.
Yes, and that is very critical.
Yep.
What is your main fear in the coming elections? Again, you can see people, they are those who say we fear nothing at 29%. But there are issues there: election rigging, chaos if Museveni wins, voter intimidation, voter buying. Those are the fears everybody has in the field there. And tomorrow I will be able to give you which person is saying that from where. Voter trust, distrust. 45% of voters do not trust the EC at all. 45%. Well, 40% say, yeah, we trust the guy. Go down. Distrust of the police. 49% of voters do not trust the Uganda police getting involved into electoral process. Go. Presidential 7. We wanted to see whether do people still remember the promises and whether Mr. Museveni has performed as promised. And you can see, well, 43% feel that President Museveni has somehow done his work. 26% believe he has not, and 26% of that says he has actually done it. So when you get 26 plus 43, somehow you are able to conclude what is happening. I think this is basically what we have. The main report, I should be able to unveil it tomorrow with all the breakdowns, and anybody who wants to come and receive the report is free to come at Africana at 10 o'clock, 9:30, 10 o'clock, where we'll be able to present the complete report and also give the report out.
Thank you very much, Dr. Patrick Wakida. Please give him a round of applause. And I think the research findings is still telling us that President Museveni is still a big brand in this country and in Kampala. And I think Honorable Richard Todong, even if you go and sit in Nwaya. So let's get to it. You have listened to the researcher. You have listened to his presentation. You have seen the numbers. Let me begin with you, Mr. Moses Kisa.
Sure.
What do you make of these findings?
Well, the findings are not entirely surprising because they are not very different from previous similar polls that have been conducted. The ratings for General Museveni have always been, above 50%, and so have been the ratings for the ruling NRM party. So there isn't much of a surprise. But see, for me, the starting point for this kind of endeavor is to ask whether opinion polling is a sensible way to gauge, public opinion in a country like Uganda. Are people really at liberty and free to express their opinions genuinely? I think that's a question that...
Are you saying Ugandans, when asked, they are scared, they can't talk, they are intimidated?
Well...
Ugandans are people who talk, who express themselves.
Sure, but you see, there is also something called preference falsification. You see, human beings are very clever people. When they feel that the information they are giving out there is likely to cause them problems. And you know how our society is structured, Patrick. We have DSOs, GISOs. I've been told recently there are also some at the parish. What are they called? PISOs, See, these people have a way of guarding the population such that people are going to tell you what they think would please the powers that be and not their actual preference. We saw that especially in Eastern Europe in the late 1980s. The totalitarian regimes in Eastern Europe were winning elections by 100%, and then they crumbled overnight. People had been voting them, but then what happened? Suddenly things unraveled. We've seen it even in Africa here. Egypt, Hassan Mubarak used to win elections by over 90%. But then in 2011, the population poured in the streets at Tahrir Square and overthrew Hassan Mubarak. Saddam Hussein used to win elections by 99%. Okay? He wasn't, was he loved by his people? Maybe, maybe not. So the point I'm making is this, that whereas this information is important for the political actors, it also has to be received bearing in mind the context that we are operating in this country. So you want to say Uganda is at the level of a pariah state like Iraq was during that time? Well, I don't think... people are scared to express themselves? I don't think we are very far away from that, especially after 30 years of a military regime in Uganda. You see, we've never had a real, truly civilian government here. People in this country will tell you that General Museveni is the only one who can guarantee peace and stability precisely because he's a military man. When you see there the ratings that were being given to other people, they include former soldiers. So there is that perception that, see, if you don't have a military background, then you cannot lead this country. And that, see, that fear, this country is still very much caught in a fear trap.
Thank you. Mr. Godbert Mushabe, what do you pick from these research findings?
I generally pick like three key interesting observations. One is the consistency of the lack of trust of the citizens in the Electoral Commission. That almost from probably way back to 2006, the findings of every poll has been consistent. Whether it has been Research World, whether it has been Afrobarometer, and any other poll. I find that quite consistent, and it's and therefore it reflects on the quality of the electoral process, because the Electoral Commission is the referee in this game. Now, if the teams or if even the spectators do not trust the referee, will actually do a good job. It's really, I think it's bad for the process itself. Secondly, I think I found it quite striking that while the registration, the ID registration is very high, the delivery of the cards has not been effected. But I think what was striking for me is that I think Patrick says most of the people who have received their IDs are in northern Uganda and Kampala. And the question I ask myself is, what is the infrastructure that is available in northern Uganda to deliver IDs, and it is not available in the rest parts of the country? I would really want to listen tomorrow, Patrick explaining to us. So in other words, that is for me an issue to actually follow up if I was advising anybody looking at the registration data. I think the third point, if I was Richard, what would make me worried is actually President Museveni's figures. First of all, he has 100% name recognition, which I think is really expected. Given he's been president 30 years, the last 5 years he's been moving around, doing all kinds of things. So that's understandable. But 6 months, I think now it's 6 months before the elections, if your rating is at 54-56% as an incumbent, normally you definitely would have to have, you actually should lose sleep over this, because that is not the right position to be if you are an incumbent and you are 6 months into the elections. No?
Where do you want him to be?
No, I'm just giving you my analysis of the data, that as an incumbent to be, remember you need 50 plus 1%.
You already has that.
To be able to win. No, do you see, this is a baseline, and we are 6 months before the election. Incumbents normally, they don't gain new voters, they actually lose in any election. If you have a campaign that is robust, you have a process that is free and fair, level playing field, as an incumbent, normally you actually lose, you don't win.
Okay, Honorable Richard Todong, whereas your candidate is doing well, the numbers are going down. You, the young people, are now in control. What is it that you are doing wrong that the numbers are going down? You could be out of office in 2016.
Of course, thank you. I need to thank Dr. Patrick for the work done, and I need to start from the positive. That, of course, it's good that he highlighted that for those that pronounce that their NRM, according to his data, they are way over 80%. It corresponds to what we registered as we were doing registration of our party members. That Uganda population is at 34 million. Of the 34 million, 15 million are registered voters. Of the 15 million, 10.2 are NRM, because that is what we have registered. And it's almost coming to what they have found in the field, independently. So to some extent we are matching. Two, From what I picked is that yes, it's true that our brand name, first of all, it is not the person of the president, it's the party that has achieved all this over the years. Ugandans have seen how we have dispensed governance. Ugandans have seen how we have rationalized budget process. Ugandans have seen how we have invested money in infrastructure areas, roads, education, health sectors, and all that. In all that, and then so if you go to the ingredients of these findings and all that, you can really go to the nitty-gritty of all that.
You say this is the institution of the party.
So the party has really achieved, because I'm talking for the party. Now, two, of course, picking from what Godba said, that I should be concerned because of the decline in support of President Museveni, but I'm not, because his finding is putting Museveni alongside all those names that he has been contesting with. Maybe we should ask that Ugandans might need another name that has never featured in any of the ballot papers before. But if you put Museveni against Besigye, you put Museveni against definitely people would go for Museveni. So it has been a constant and a consistent demonstration of trust by Ugandans on the person and the personality of President Museveni. To what Moses said, I don't think Dr. Patrick can attest to this, that as they were carrying out their research, definitely the respondents, all that were not coerced to respond the way they responded. And I don't think even anybody knew they were doing this research, apart from the day they announced that the findings are ready. So where else would they get people to come and coerce respondents to come and give answers as per the questionnaires? Now, what concerns me, which is very true, is that there is a growing number of young people who are reaching voting age, and the demand on political parties are real, not only on NRM but to all the political parties. Why? Because you, the media, have also put governance to the people, and the people are now demanding quality governance. And for we in a political party that is in the administration of governance, we are even supposed to answer harder questions than we are answering now. Because if people want education, if you say education sector, they talk of teachers, they talk of classrooms, they talk of quality of education, they would be asking a government in power. If they talk of health, like the example he gave, drugs are not in the hospitals are not accessible to people, mothers are producing from homes, all these, they're asking a government in power. So these questions are questions that a government that is seeking election should prepare itself with the adequate and practical, tangible questions to the voters that are about 36% new on the face. No.
Almost the same questions. Why?
Yeah, but answered them differently. Every election has different answers. So we are going 2016 election, we expect the same questions but might be put in a different form, and new answers and creativity in answering them should be provided to the people, especially the young people who are way over 30% of the new voters that are coming on to vote in the coming election.
Let me involve the audience here. I'll ask my colleague Joseph to pass on the microphone to anyone who has a question to the panelists, or even the researcher. Who is going first? Who's going fast? Yes, Job Kija.
Thanks, Patrick. My name is Job Kija. I work with the Uganda National NGO Forum. I think the findings show that 55% of Ugandans that were consulted do not believe that the 2016 election will be free and fair. And now, Honorable Todong, who is part of Parliament and part of government, which has actually delayed the process of dealing with constitutional reforms, comes to Parliament, presents what, in my opinion, is actually a shoddy, I don't even know what term to use, a very shoddy bill, okay, facilitates a committee of Parliament massively to traverse the whole country, apparently to collect citizens' views, benchmark, okay, outside Uganda, spending taxpayers' money, and then at the end of that, come and pass change of a name from Electoral Commission to independent. Do you really feel for the many Ugandans whose taxes you are spending, okay, to come and give us what I would call not even cooked at all? Somebody would call it half-baked, but not cooked, raw food. I think you really need to explain to Ugandans what you mean by this quack thing that you just passed in the past few days.
Okay, that was a little bit outside, but also because 45% of Ugandans do not have confidence in the Electoral Commission. Yeah. Which is related. Patrick, how you have a...
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Dr. Patrick and the panelists. My name is Patrick Kaboyo. I get disturbed by the fact that the 34 million Ugandans and 15 million voters, as the Honorable Minister states, a small percentage, rather, finds it not important to value education as a component they would consider for election. And this to me is quite disturbing. It's quite revealing that maybe the Honorable Minister has to tell us what are the results so far. Can we harvest in terms of the universal primary education into the decades of the education we have offered, if the appreciation levels to put education as a key factor for any leader in this country is concerned? I would love that interpretation to be put right in view of the systems we're implementing in the education sector.
Okay, two hands behind.
Thank you, Patrick, and thank you, Patrick, the host, and thank you, Patrick, the researcher, and also thank NTV for sponsoring this research. Just like one of the panelists said, it is not surprising from 7 to have those traits. It's not surprising because he has been going to the people for the last close to 30 years now, and he has not been going to the people empty-handed. He has gone to the people with the launch of the borehole, with the some billions of money to the circle, and some, very many things. So when the rates go high, don't be comfortable, Honorable Todong.
No, I'm good.
Because it's a name recognition, like Godba said. He has been around for a long time. Like when you mention Agnes Nandu, they recognize me. But actually, when I stood for election, they might not vote for me. So it's not a comfort zone for you. But one thing I want to put to government is, you saw the poverty levels in the country, and also the education levels in the country. That means such people are vulnerable to bribing. And the people said, if a candidate gave me money, I would vote for them.
But who has the money, Agnes? Who has more money?
But who is in power, Patrick? The
so
people
again,
in power
again,
have the money.
Richard Todong is in a comfort zone.
The Todongos of this world have money when they put on yellow and go around the country. That yellow is for nothing. It's money. So the bribery will raise because the levels of poverty are high. The education levels are worse. People are not, when you give them money, it's all. They don't mind about the social services. So the population of Uganda is actually vulnerable to bribery. And any candidate who will come to bribe these people will pass. Therefore, to Dong, and the concerns were very clear. People don't have social services. There are no drugs in hospitals. People are poor. Unemployment among the youth. And that rate of the youth that are unemployed are new voters. What new ideas are you now going to present?
Thank you, Agnes.
To the Ugandans?
Thank you, Agnes. Though I don't believe that if you are poor, then you have integrity deficit. In fact, you have seen the rich stealing more money than the poor. Yes, we have a lawyer in-house. We have two. Okay. The one in the middle first.
Thank you so much. My name is Mike Aboneka, a very passionate citizen of this country, coming from Ntenjulu South constituency, deep in Kayunga. To me, there are two issues. One, why, Dr. Wakida, why are citizens not interested in politics? Is it that politics is a taboo, or the politicians seem to make it look like it's not a go area for anyone? Why aren't people concerned about their well-being and the governance? And then 59% of the people who receive the bribe go ahead and vote for the person who has bribed them. That is alarming. If you have 59% of people who receive the money,
they are honest Ugandans. If they have given
yes, and that's what I'm saying. That
they'll give back.
It's a bit alarming. And how do we deal with that? Because this voter bribery has come, it has stayed with us, and I think it's going to stay with us again. How do we deal with such a situation when we know who owns money and even declares it?
Thank you. We're going to share to take 2 more comments on that line, and then we'll hand back to the panelists very briefly before we take a break. Yes.
Thank you. Professor Julius Kiza in elections. In
you could state your name by yourself.
Oh dear, sorry. My name is Karamaji Andrew. I work with Human Rights and Peace Center at the Faculty of Law, Makerere University. Professor Julius Kiza has written on elections in a hybrid regime and referred to it as polling, and also talked about opinion polls and referred to them as polling in a semi-authoritarian African polity. I'd like to underscore the points made by the PhD candidate Moses Kisa in saying that public opinion actually may not exist as these results actually show, for reasons among others. Respondents want to please the powers that be. People want to refrain from hurting vested political or security interests. So what I would like the researcher, Dr. Patrick Wakita, the fears that I would like him to assuage are we facing a situation of choiceless democracies where it is the voted who choose the voters as opposed to voters choosing the leaders? And how much of the truth has been concealed by these factors that I've talked about? How much of the fear, how much of the distrust? If you say over 40% of the population does not trust the police force, maybe it's even much higher. We could find it could be in the mid-50s or 60s. What does that portend for an electoral process? And how has he proofed these results against those undertones that might not come out in these results? Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you, Sadab Chitata. I'm a journalist with the Observer newspaper. My questions are just out of curiosity. Dr. Kida, what was your choice? Why did you choose to ask your respondents measuring the performance of YKM7? Because I would imagine that it would have been better for you to gauge the performance of the government as opposed to an individual. Did you want to suggest to the population that the President Museveni is the government, and President Museveni is the government, he's the state and everything? Then I'm also wondering, why did you choose a question suggesting that there would be chaos if Museveni wins the next election? It sounded disturbing to me. Thank you.
Okay.
Can I answer that?
Yes, please. No, you have a microphone on yours.
I would start with the last one. You made it look like it was a question. That was the response. It was not a question, it was a response. You see, for me, I asked, what are your fears? If you tell me my fear is that I think that if Mr. Museveni won, some people would bring chaos. That's what I will report, and I think that's what we reported. We did not ask a question of that nature. Please pay attention to the graphs. Somebody else also asked, are the voters being honest? The question I would be asking, Andrew, are Ugandans voters rational? Are they rational? And I will tell you that from my experience of research, Ugandan voters are rational. Why are they saying they want education? Why are they not saying they want education? I tried to do a qualitative survey to find out what do Ugandans consider as education. The majority, 78%. Their concern is not so much about my children will get a job, but so much of how my child leaves home to go to school. And that's why you hear them saying UPE is something very important. Now, whereas you are looking at the end product. These guys are looking at, is my child going to school free? So once you offer that, And that comes from the expectation. The higher you go in education as a country, the more people raise their bars on expectation from their regimes. Now, we are having fairly poor population, very poor. You saw that. Yeah. Over 70% can only earn between 0 and 100,000. Divide that by 30 days. You'll be able to know how much they earn. Majority of them, about 60%, have only completed the primary education. The expectation of such a population, the reason why I give you the demographics, the population, is for you to be able to appreciate who are the Ugandan voters. Where do they live? Therefore, what are their expectations? Those are very important when we analyze polls. Today I was discussing with one of the leader of opinion polling in the UK. And the question was, what went wrong? I wanted to know. They were inviting me for a conference in September. And we are still trying to understand, are the British voters liars? What went wrong? And we are going to have a conference from 16th to the 17th of next month, just to try to understand that. Ugandan voters are rational. And the rationality of our voters actually comes from who they are. You don't expect to drive a Mercedes-Benz when you don't know what a Mercedes-Benz is. You are not going to be asking to Mr. Tadwong that you want a good school. If you look at that population, the biggest population that is saying that education is bad is actually not in Kampala. Because Kampala people haven't seen any bad school. They are going in good schools. The problem is actually in the village. You know? So we better, let us not analyze this data away from the population. Start by understanding the voters. That's why I gave you the voters. And I said, this is the voter. This is his income. This is education. This is where he lives. So that you begin to analyze this voter.
Let us take a break, and when we come back, I'll have the other panelists also respond, and I'll take more questions from you. You're watching a special edition of On the Spot. We're coming to you live from Wizards Media Auditorium here in Ntinda. Still tuned to NTV Uganda. You're watching a special edition of On the Spot. We're coming to you live from Wizards Media Auditorium here in Ntinda, and we've just had a presentation of an opinion poll that was conducted by Research World International, and there are so many new findings we've seen today. Of course, there are losers and those who are gaining in this. Let me take you back to the panelists. I'm beginning with you, Moses Kisa.
Yep.
What should the candidates, let's say the opposition, what should they be working on now, considering what has come from the research findings?
Well, Ndugu Patrick, before I go there, let me just quickly respond to what Ndugu Richard Todong was saying earlier. I did not say that the people who are carrying out the poll have coerced the respondents into giving the answers they gave. I was saying that the social and political terrain in a country like Uganda may not be very conducive for carrying out an opinion poll, because you have a skewed political system. Okay, one individual has been campaigning since the last election. No other candidate has been campaigning by the time the poll was being carried out. So if you ask the voters who would be their favored candidate, when other candidates haven't been campaigning, one individual has been campaigning, do the responses give you actually reflect the actual thinking of the respondents? Secondly, the social environment in this country, I must reiterate, is not very conducive for opinion polling, because, you see, people are thinking about government in a certain way. Okay, you've had many Ugandans say, we want government to do A, B, C, D. Many Ugandans do not fully appreciate what government is supposed to be doing. Okay, so even when they're being asked about the government, they equate the government with Museveni, and I think that's why what Andrew was saying, or somebody in the audience, that Dr. Wakida asked for the evaluation of.
But what you are forgetting, that opinion polls in Uganda, especially done by Research World International, have always shown us almost closer to the real. Closer to the real.
Yes.
So how does that come?
Well, I don't know what you mean by closer to the rim.
I mean, if they say Museveni will win by 65, he wins by 69.
No, that's another matter, Patrick. But let me come to another issue. Somebody was asking in the audience, are Ugandan voters rational? I believe that all human beings are rational, regardless of where they are in this world. So Ugandan voters are definitely rational human beings. And because they are rational, they will tell you something that is actually not coming from their heart, because they want to preserve themselves. If they know that there is a giso, a diso around them.
Is that the kind of feeling you get that when you're moving in Uganda, people won't express themselves?
Go to the most rural place in this country.
I want to throw that kind of thinking to the audience. Do you get the feel that Ugandans cannot express themselves because there's a diso, there's a giso? Yes.
I don't think this is the right.
It's Andrew, what?
I don't think this is the right.
Are you not a Ugandan?
Sample space.
Okay.
Because of the socioeconomic reasons, that you should base a conclusion for such a question.
So, but you concur with him that yes, they may not.
They will not tell you what they really feel for those existential reasons.
Ivan Okuda, just right at the back.
I disagree. I think it's escapist talk to an extent. If you went up country as a journalist, Patrick, any district in this country, and randomly asked people of different age groups and socioeconomic status questions to do with political figures, Mbabazi, Besigye, Museveni, they'll give you very honest views. So I do not know why those views, according to Mr. Moses Kisa, may not be honest. That's what you're saying. Yeah, I think Moses arrives at those conclusions over hamburger and champagne in the Western world. We're on ground and we know people in Uganda are very honest. If they are not honest, I mean, the KFM recently conducted an opinion poll and people were calling in from different parts of the country. Where was the fear factor?
But it had a very different result.
Patrick, I want to give you, you see, I want to disagree with the panelists that Ugandans are actually these days very honest on what they speak. Was it 35% of NRM members said Amama Mbabazi could be a possible successor? So what are they fearing? They would have feared to say, we can vote Amama Mbabazi. So Ugandans are very, I disagree with you that they speak actually what comes out of their heart. If they say, you can give me money and I vote for you, then they are very honest.
Thank you, Agnes. Let me go to you, Godbert Mshabe.
Just a very quick comment on whether actually respondents are able to speak honestly to this issue. I think that we should leave room for variation, that there are those who are going to speak honestly, there are those who won't. So really, if you are thinking about the margins of error, that's one area where you'd find them. Because I interact with the people, this kind of audience. I have colleagues and I talk to people in the business community. They're actually more a scared lot than even the people in the rural areas, because they tell you, you feel it. Even guys in academia, because you sit with them and they tell you, man, I don't want to say anything to that effect. So I think that there is a variation that you can bring in terms of margin of error. So I don't think that we should dismiss it completely, the point that Moses is talking about. But I also wanted to share with our audience that for us who are supporting this poll, we are really looking at this as a baseline. Because there are a couple of polls that have come out in the last couple of weeks, really most of them fairly ad hoc, radio, telephone and whatever, we thought that we needed to present something more robust in terms of the evidence, in terms of comprehensiveness, and our goal is to make sure that this is done on a fair and regular basis based on certain considerations, so that we can see whether we can actually track these trends. So I guess my argument here is that for whatever each of the parameters that have been assessed, that any of those could shift whether it is the potential candidates that have been assessed, the opinions of citizens around certain issues that could shift. But thirdly, that I just wanted again to highlight the whole issue of name recognition. It looks to me from this poll that name recognition is that significant when it comes to the choices that voters make. So in other words, if you are a candidate, or if you are an intending candidate, Godba or Richard Todong, you are going to have to worry about your name recognition, because that is going to also affect your favorability among the voters. So if any of the politicians, any of the leaders that have been assessed, if they wanted to shift their numbers in terms of favorability, it looks to me like one of the areas you would want to look at is to what are the strategies for you to actually increase name recognition.
Okay, thank you very much. Before I bring you Honorable Richard Todong, on a second thought, I think Moses Kis has a point, because when he brings the examples of Iraq and Egypt, where people were scoring 97%, and then on the following day, they're the same people who want to skin you alive. Are they telling the truth? So are you comfortable with these numbers?
With that, if that was happening, we would be getting results of 101%.
It has happened before, where people scored 95%, and the same day, the same people have pushed those regimes out.
Dear audience and panelists and the host, I think we need to be honest. We have lost elections, you know that. We have won elections, you know that. We have debated with you, you know that. We have argued with you, you know that. We have gone on the streets and argued our cases, you know that. So there is no fear.
We know that.
So really, so really, that there is nothing like that. I think my friend should settle down and understand how Ugandans are really opening up and are free to express their will. I need to answer 2 or 3 things. One, of course, which was a little off, about someone talking about the past bill in Parliament. I remember when I was representing my party before that committee, I told them that Mao Zedong once said that it's not the color of the cat that catches a rat, it is the character. So you can call the Electoral Commission whatever name you want, they're very, very independent, extraordinary independent, whatever. But as long as whatever they do is still as they are supposed to do, it is still not change anything. So really that we can take it to another level for the discussion. But yes, about education, the results there, we check that 44% of the respondents were people who have finished primary level education, and about 32% are people who finished secondary education, meaning close to 76% of the respondents were people who went to school, and these are people who could have gone fairly in UP and USC schools.
God, you disagree.
Hey, of course.
Why?
No, I'm just because based on the age bracket that they mentioned, and based on those that they concentrated their research work on. So really, for someone to think that they are not informed, because someone was insinuating that maybe these respondents are not well informed, they don't understand. Ugandans are informed, they know what they want. If I can conclude,
I don't buy the idea.
Of course, Godby will never buy that. I know that. So
no, I think that.
I think the other thing is
he's reaching with the point. Let him make it.
No, Richard, I take exception to the fact that I can't buy that. I'm always saying. I mean, for me, looking at the data that Patrick presented, it's like there is a majority of the respondents that actually have low levels of education, and you see the degree to which the society is sophisticated and is able to analyze is not determined by whether someone has gone to school. It is determined by up to what level and what kind of education that you achieved. So the mere fact that so many have gone to primary school is not enough to say that voters can be able to make a certain level of analysis, relate, for example, their interest in terms of service delivery with the vote. I mean, I think it's Moses. I think it's Moses who talked about it. That you see, if you are a voter in my village, who has grown up there, and you know the school in your neighborhood. That is the school that you are going to be demanding from the government. I think that correlation has to be there.
But that is the majority of Ugandans, and those are the people supporting the NRM. You can't take it away from them. Can you?
And I think that's the point that I'm making. That even for all these politicians and political parties, they have to understand that structure of the electorate for them to really be able to communicate to them.
You know, for me, my advice to those who like to compete with us is that start from the known to the unknown. The known is 82% of Ugandans in political parties are members of NRM. The known factor is 69% of those they interviewed believe in NRM and President Museveni. Meaning, no. If you add 43 plus 26,
yes. That's a misrepresentation.
If you add 43 plus 26, that's what you're saying. Those who believe in President Museveni has done well, and those who believe.
Maybe Patrick needs to clarify that.
I was taking that. I was taking note. I was very keen into that. Those who believe in President Museveni as a person to have done something, and then those who believe that the party has achieved what it had put in its previous manifesto. So if you add the two, it comes to 69%. So that means if you want to compete with NRM, you have to compete with those that believe in the party that has achieved and has scored.
But is NRM a party?
You still doubt that?
Patrick, allow me.
Because it's fused with the state.
You still doubt that?
Allow me.
Can there be NRM?
Can I now respond to the last part
without President Museveni?
Can I respond to the last part? That I'm sure you know the answer. The other one is that President Museveni has been going to the countryside with a package, and definitely if in the last election we promised roads, education, schools, water points, health centers, and the president has gone to launch. By the way, of the 33 million Ugandans, only about 6 to 7 million Ugandans have mobile phones. And of that, only about 4 million are on internet. And so we cannot communicate to our voters on WhatsApp and all these things you're talking about. We need to go to them manually, physically, and talk to them through rallies, public meetings.
It's called via analog.
When the president goes to the countryside to address Ugandans, talk to them, he's reaching out to the people and he's explaining what we promised in our last manifesto and what we have been able to achieve in line with our objectives as a party and what government has been able to do in our time. So really, I don't see that as a big issue that people should say the president is going out with the envelopes, with the sacks of money.
No. I think Patrick,
because that will make you miss.
You see
what they are reporting. You see.
No, I think Patrick.
So really, I think Patrick. The fact is, we are strong. God knows that. NRM is strong, and definitely we are still ready for victory.
You know, let me say, if I can just comment on that. That the crisis that we face as a country is for our leaders failing to understand how to run government. They know how to campaign, but they don't know how to run government. When you campaign and win, you go into the business of running government. You don't remain on a campaign trail for another 5 years. So you to go and deliver envelopes because you promised money in the elections, and go and deliver roads and deliver boreholes and whatever, that is campaigning. And it's okay if a party like NRM or any of these parties make that choice. I think the point that we are making in this poll, that when you have the character, the structure of the voters that Patrick is describing in this poll, they are not able then to make the connection that actually this government that was voted 5 years ago, instead of running government, has actually been campaigning. So that's the advantage that a party like NRM has. But the moment the other parties can learn on how to explain to the voters how they actually communicate that message, then you know that things can actually change. And lastly,
but when are they going to learn? They have been in the game for the last 15 years, doing the same thing and
that is actually
getting the same results.
That's actually the last point that I want to make. That you see,
governance platform is shared between NRM and other parties. That is what
the last point that I want to make. That you hear a lot of NRM people saying they are a mass party. They are the majority, and then you say, but if that was the case, then the NRM would not be using government and the state machinery to disrupt the political activities of all the other parties, because they wouldn't have anything to fear. NRM would not fear taking on comprehensive electoral reforms, because I think the only party that fears free and fair elections in this country is NRM, because otherwise everybody else has said, no, let's have reforms. It is NRM that fears a free and fair election.
Okay, Moses Kiso before.
Just a quick one, Patrick. You see, you asked the question: is NRM a political party? And I want to challenge Richard here to tell us, when NRM is holding its SEC meeting or the caucus meeting, where does it take place? Where does the NRM get all the resources it moves around the country? If it were a political organization independent from the Ugandan state, why, as a political party, must you conduct your business in a state house? That is illegitimate, it is illegal, and it's not what characterizes a political party. A political party must have independent and institutionalized existence, and that is not what the NRM is today.
My friend Moses, I don't know when he returned to the country. he needs to be.
I live here, Richard. I live here.
I know you live, Richard, but you disappeared.
Let me also.
But I think. Just a quick I'm saying I don't know when you returned to the country.
Let me also respond to somebody who was saying that I was speaking like that because I eat hamburger and champagne in Chicago,
which is not bad.
Please, you should have made your point instead of taking a cheap barbad. I live in this country. I have a family here. So I'm speaking from a position of information. Okay?
We, as members of NRM political party, we contribute money. We do fundraising. We have projects that generate income to us.
Like which projects?
We don't derive whatever we use from the public coffer. The Auditor General by now would have questioned our records through Parliament, audited accounts.
Okay.
Every financial year, we file an audited account of our records. So go to Electoral Commission where we file this and you check income, expenditure, and where we get the money from.
Dr. Wakida.
Yes, I've heard the analyst, but I think what we can draw from this poll, one is that there is excitement outside there. People want to vote. That one is a finding that you can see in that poll. The other thing that you can see is that no party is making gains. None of the parties has made any gain. The entry of new competitors in there have created a different scenario. In 2010, Patrick, remember I conducted a poll with Monta. I was still trying to measure almost the same questions. And at that time, you had NRM, Mr. Museveni at 64%. NRM, Mr. Museveni at 64%. I remember producing that poll. FDC at about 22% of Mr. Besigye. Now, when I see all the parties trying to lose, whereas the NRM, Mr. Museveni party has dropped about average of 54%, the FDC has not increased its percentages. And I can confirm that when I tried to track the respondents who are causing this, are the respondents that said we will vote for Amama Mbabazi. And the drop in Mr. Museveni's scoring from what I saw in 2010 to today is a deduction that you see of 11% that seems to be following Honorable Amama Mbabazi wherever he goes. And you can see that his average is between 11%, 14%, 13%. And that is actually the swing vote. Okay. That's very critical for everybody who is reading this poll to see. 82%, and I want to clarify this. I said that when we asked a question, do you belong to a political party? 61% of the respondents said we belong to a political party. So we went deeply to find out, you said you belong to a political party, can you tell us your party? And 82% of 61 said they belong to NRM, which is very important. And it's very important for people to know that that is the status. Whether NRM, the Secretary General, they have been doing a lot of work, they deserve the credit. 82% of the 61. But remember, you have the other 38%, which does not belong to a political party. And that is where the battleground is.
Can you also, Patrick, say that this poll, when we are doing the poll, it is the same time when NRM was actually carrying out its doing its new register?
No, but you see, that is a credit NRM must take.
Okay, let me take this to the audience. Do you get the sense? Yes. We have had many polls. Do you get a sense that, we're going to take a lady now, that it appears the opposition has a ceiling and they don't go past that ceiling because they don't increase almost in the numbers? Or maybe you have a different opinion. Yes, ma'am.
I'm actually reflecting. Well, my name is Patience Kwizera Mpamizo, and I'm the Executive Director of East African Center for Democracy and Economic Empowerment. My opinion, I'm actually reflecting more on the 38% that actually think that there should be a change of the name, because the name that was actually asked, that is very popular, was His Excellency, the current president. But there's a 38% that actually think that there should be a change in either leadership or name. There's need for a change. So we cannot actually ignore that percentage. Then we also have to reflect on the current things that we've seen in the media. We've seen the highest level of impartiality in the police and the military, because we have had them being rounded up for things that are actually not concerning the state. We've seen the police being impartial in their activities. 1 minute when the opposition, they are chasing the opposition that is actually walking along the street with either Mbabazi or Besige, they're actually mishandling them. And then the next minute, we have the traffic police again leading a convoy with the party person's coffin. And no one says anything. And you want to tell me that actually we have a big population that is not intimidated? And then we choose to peacefully protest and walk to work. This is me minding my business, walking to work. But I'm actually carried and thrown under. So we cannot ignore some of the things that have actually been seen. We can't even say to defend them. Then we have a serious case of this Chankwanzi thing going, where MPs, especially NRM MPs, are rounded to one. We put forward this bill. Let's make sure it's passed. Must they? Because, and then we ask ourselves the quality of leadership that we actually want. Then we also ask ourselves why the people in the rural areas have lost trust. The level who do they run to? Their MPs can be bought. They can be summoned. They are under control. And then there's also the final element of having to separate NRM as a party from the system itself, because they are continuously, if the president is to choose ministers, he's going to pick from NRM. I want the president to wake up one morning and actually pick a DP or an FDC minister. He's going to have to pick an NRM person. And I can guarantee it will not be a rebel NRM person, to be an NRM person, the person that actually has his back. So my question is, we still have a big population that is not represented in the opposition in this government. Maybe I'm being very hopeful, hoping that at one point we shall be like Kenya or these other places. But then correct me if I'm wrong. I am trying to separate the party NRM from the person of the president, and then also trying to separate the structures, the institutions in place, and how they affect the opinion and the youth, especially the youth. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me Gaki at the back.
Please, 2 questions. Patrick, thank you. My name is Gaki. I have questions for at least 3 panelists, beginning with Dr. Wakida.
Yes.
Doctor, I'm interested to know from your experience carrying out these opinion polls,
yes,
what surprises you in this particular one differently than the previous ones that you have conducted?
Surprise?
Yeah, what surprises you? What stands out for you in this particular poll? I'm also interested for you to respond to a month before this, your poll, New Vision conducted a similar poll about testing same public mood, covered many more households than yours did, spoke to many more people than your research did, and scored President Museveni at 71. Yours scores him about 20%, 20 points below.
Yeah.
Do you have some explanation for that?
I can start with that.
But let me run through the questions so that.
Okay.
Godba, I'm interested from a civil society stroke opposition perspective.
Is good about opposition.
That's a good phrase.
Let me repeat it for emphasis' sake.
No, Gaki, you should not be intimidated. Just ask him.
That's why I'm choosing to repeat it for emphasis' sake.
Yes, exactly.
From a civil society stroke opposition point of view, what do these polls mean to you in that capacity? And lastly, to Mr. Todong, I was particularly curious when you identified concerns of young people and their growing demands, and you said that your work was going to be to find creative ways of answering them. Creative ways of answering them. If you could clarify that creative ways of answering them, I'd be really happy.
Let me take just one more from Richard Wanambwa behind.
Thank you. My name is Richard Wanambwa, and I report with Ego Online. I have issues with Dr. Wakida. Have you found out issues hindering the growth of opposition in these researches you've done? Because we seem to be seeing NRM either maintaining or growing, but the opposition, what is hindering it from further registering?
Why is it stunted?
Yes.
Okay.
Then also, why is more Ugandans more interested in NRM? Because we see the rural population, despite undergoing the sufferings of poverty and all these other issues, they have maintained their loyalty to NRM. Of course, we know they will drop, but they will not significantly drop. Then you talked about bribery. We also want to know who bribes. Is it the ruling party or opposition or both? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I want to start with Gaki. You said you saw a poll by New Vision. Under normal circumstances, I wouldn't comment on that. Under normal circumstances. Because one, I don't know how it was done. What I saw is that they did 6,626 interviews in 8 days. That's what I saw. From a practical point of view, I wouldn't want to comment on that. But let us look at this. That I did this poll 1 month later. Opinion poll represents the period of polling. If I did the same poll, highly likely I would get different results today. We did a poll when no candidate, not even Mr. Museveni, had started going out. There were no activities within the FDC.
You mean
wait a minute. There were no activities within FDC. I think Amama Mbabazi had not declared. That is when New Vision did that. We do our poll when all these activities are taking place. And let me tell you, choice is a function of many things. One of them is awareness of the product you want to buy. 2, the appeal of a product, which you call the value you get out of it, and then the message that you get. Now, by the time we do this poll, all these things had started happening. It is very much possible that New Vision did their poll, but they did different time. The most critical thing is that the questioning, if you look at a New Vision question and you look at this, you realize that we are talking about 2 different polls. They asked for 2016, I asked for today. Do you see the difference? New Vision says, who is that person you are thinking about for 2016? I said, if elections were held today, people made decisions for today. 2016, Gaki, do you know the suit you wear on Christmas?
Thinking about it.
Think about that Christmas will be there. Are you aware of that? In polls, we ask for today. People form their opinions from the surroundings and from things that inform them at that time. And therefore, those could be the differences. Why opposition is losing? What surprises me? Polls is not supposed to surprise. A poll is not supposed to surprise you. It's supposed to guide you. Unfortunately, in Uganda, people take the red card and they don't take the issues that people raise. And I want to tell you that the red cards can change, but these issues will remain.
Okay, we're running out of time, so let me give 1 minute each and a half, Godber and Honorable Richard.
Yeah, what do these polls mean for civil society and opposition, stroke opposition? No, I think I like the way Gaki put the question, because, you know, these days opposition is put together with civil society. Civil society oppose very, very specific issues, because in most cases here, especially if the ruling party doesn't want you to say something, they say you are opposition. Now, I always argue that if opposing a broken healthcare system is opposition, then I am. If opposing giving an 18th century education to our children to compete in the 21st century, then I am definitely opposition. But normally the ruling party, activists normally want to say you are opposition because you belong to a political party, but that is a different form of opposition. So what do I see these polls? I really think that there is a very significant opportunity in terms of the pro-democracy seeking forces, which is the opposition I belong to be able to actually push NRM as a ruling party, to be able to make concessions, to be able to even to negotiate on a number of things, because I think that my reading of these polls is that NRM is in such a weak position that you can actually challenge it and be able to bring it to the negotiating table, because there is more to do with the negotiating on how this country moves forward.
Thank you,
than just opposition ruling party politics.
Richard, your concluding remark.
Far from that, NRM is in a very strong position, Godba, and try a little harder.
I didn't ask a question.
I was asked what creative ways. We know we are dealing with a very dynamic population of young people. The civic society, like Godba is saying, is becoming a little more aggressive. The media is becoming more advocative than before. The population is a little more well informed than before. They need governance given as it is promised and even better. And we know that young people have come mainly from rural areas to urban centers seeking for opportunities to work, and they're looking for jobs. So all these are challenges that would give NRM as a political party ground to think through its upcoming manifesto to package something that can make the young people have more hope. A political party or leadership these are dealers in hope. We need to give hope to Ugandans. So when we see the candle seems to be dwindling, like they say our support is reducing, we need to think around the clock to make sure that our support goes up.
Thank you.
And definitely that is the creativity we are coming back with. And
Thank you
when we are
very much.
launching our manifesto for 2016, definitely you'll see all these things.
Thank you very much. May I ask you to please give them a round of applause, and also our researcher. And you at home, thank you very much for having watched this program. And this brings us to the end of tonight's edition of On the Spot that has given you the research findings of the opinion poll. We can still hear that President Museveni and NRM are still a bigger brand. Tomorrow you can join the official launch of this opinion poll at Africana Hotel at 10 a.m. Good night and God bless Uganda.